My father abandoned me for his new family, so I seduced his new wife and destroyed his second chance at happiness. I was 15 when my father walked out on us, leaving nothing but a note on the kitchen counter and the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the hallway. The note was brief, almost clinical in its tone, explaining that he had found someone new and needed to start fresh. My mother found it first, and I watched her crumple to the floor like a paper doll, her sobs echoing through our small apartment for what felt like hours. The months that followed were a blur of financial struggles and emotional devastation. My mother worked double shifts at the diner just to keep us afloat, coming home with grease stains on her uniform and exhaustion etched into every line of her face. I picked up a part-time job stocking shelves at the local grocery store, watching other families shop together while I counted down the minutes until my shift ended. 3 years passed before I heard from him again. A wedding invitation arrived in our mailbox, elegant and expensive-looking, with gold embossing that caught the light. He was marrying someone barely 10 years older than me, a woman who looked like she had stepped out of a magazine with her perfect teeth and designer clothes. The invitation felt like a slap in the face, a reminder that we had been so easily replaced. My mother threw the invitation away without a second glance, but I fished it out of the trash later that night. Something about the whole situation ate at me, a burning resentment that grew stronger with each passing day. I started researching his new life online, scrolling through social media posts that showed him living in a sprawling suburban house with a perfectly manicured lawn and a three-car garage. The woman he married was named Sarah, and she had a daughter from a previous relationship who was about my age. They looked happy in all their photos, like the perfect blended family that he had never tried to create with us. I found myself studying her face, memorizing her features, wondering what made her so special that he would abandon his own son for her. College came and went in a haze of part-time jobs and student loans. I studied business, driven by a desire to prove myself worthy of the father who had never bothered to attend a single graduation or birthday. My mother remarried when I was 22, a kind man who treated her like a queen and made her laugh again. Watching them together only intensified my anger toward my father, seeing what a real relationship looked like compared to the hollow shell of what we had been. After graduation, I landed a decent job at a marketing firm in the city where my father now lived. The irony was not lost on me that I was moving closer to the man who had spent years avoiding me. I rented a small apartment downtown and threw myself into work, quickly climbing the corporate ladder with a determination that surprised even me. It was at a charity gala that I first saw Sarah in person. She was even more beautiful than her photos suggested, with an effortless grace that drew people to her like moths to a flame. My father stood beside her, looking older and grayer than I remembered, but still carrying himself with that same arrogant confidence that had always infuriated me. I watched them from across the room, nursing a glass of wine and planning my approach. When Sarah excused herself to the restroom, I followed at a distance, timing my entrance to coincide with her exit. The collision was perfectly orchestrated, sending her clutch flying across the marble floor and scattering its contents everywhere. Apologizing profusely, I helped her gather her belongings, making sure our hands touched as I handed her the lipstick and keys. She was gracious about the accident, laughing off my clumsiness with a warmth that made me understand why my father had been drawn to her. We talked for a few minutes about nothing important, but I made sure to leave an impression, mentioning that I worked in marketing and might be able to help with her charity work. The next week, I sent her a carefully crafted email about potential partnerships between her foundation and my company. She responded enthusiastically, suggesting we meet for coffee to discuss the details. The coffee meeting turned into lunch, which turned into dinner, which turned into a regular occurrence that neither of us acknowledged as crossing any lines. Sarah was lonely, I realized during our conversations. My father traveled frequently for work, leaving her alone in that big house with only her teenage daughter for company. She had friends, but they were all superficial relationships built around charity events and social climbing. I offered her something different, genuine conversation and attention that she had been craving. Our relationship evolved slowly, like a chess game where each move was calculated and deliberate. I learned about her insecurities, her fears about aging, her concerns about her daughter's rebellious phase. I positioned myself as a confidant, someone she could trust with her deepest thoughts and feelings. The fact that I was her husband's son remained my carefully guarded secret. Months passed before anything physical happened between us. It started with lingering touches during our conversations, hands that stayed connected a moment too long, eyes that held contact until the tension became unbearable. I knew I was crossing a line that could never be uncrossed, but the thought of destroying my father's happiness the way he had destroyed mine was too intoxicating to resist. The first kiss happened in her car after a particularly emotional conversation about her marriage. She had been crying, mascara streaking down her cheeks, as she confessed that she felt more like a trophy wife than a partner. I reached over to wipe away her tears, and suddenly we were kissing with a desperation that spoke to years of loneliness and unfulfilled needs. We both knew it was wrong, but the wrongness only made it more exciting. Our affair began in earnest after that night, conducted in hotel rooms and my apartment, always careful to avoid places where we might be recognized. Sarah was passionate in a way that surprised me, as if she had been holding back for years and finally found an outlet for her desires. The guilt she felt was palpable, but I encouraged her to see it as taking back control of her life. I painted her husband as the villain, a man who took her for granted and left her alone too often. The fact that he was my father made the betrayal even sweeter, knowing that I was taking from him the one thing he valued most. Our relationship continued for nearly a year before the first crack appeared. Sarah's daughter had been acting out more than usual, staying out late and getting into trouble at school. During one of our meetings, Sarah mentioned that her daughter had been asking questions about the man she had been seeing, having apparently spotted us together at a restaurant. I suggested that we take a break, let things cool down until the situation with her daughter stabilized. Sarah agreed reluctantly, but I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that she had risked everything for a relationship that might not survive the light of day. The temporary separation was torture for both of us, but it also gave me time to plan the next phase of my revenge. The opportunity came when my father's business hit a rough patch. He had made some poor investments and was struggling to keep his company afloat. Sarah confided in me about their financial troubles, how they might have to sell the house and downsize their lifestyle. I saw my chance and offered to help, suggesting that my marketing firm might be able to provide some consulting services at a reduced rate. The irony was delicious as I sat across from my father in his office, negotiating a deal that would save his business while sleeping with his wife. He didn't recognize me at first, the years having changed both of us significantly. When I finally revealed my identity, the shock on his face was worth every moment of planning and patience. He tried to play the role of the remorseful father, apologizing for his abandonment and expressing pride in the man I had become. But I could see through the act, recognizing the same selfish motivations that had driven him to leave us all those years ago. He was only interested in reconciling because he needed something from me, just as he had always been. I played along with his attempts at reconciliation, accepting his dinner invitations and pretending to be open to rebuilding our relationship. All the while, I continued my affair with Sarah, who was oblivious to the connection between her lover and her husband's newfound business partner. The deception was intoxicating, knowing that I held the power to destroy his world with a single revelation. The truth came out in the most unexpected way. Sarah's daughter, who had been increasingly suspicious of her mother's behavior, hired a private investigator to follow her. The photos were damning, showing Sarah and me in intimate moments that left no doubt about the nature of our relationship. But the real shock came when the investigator ran a background check on me, revealing my true identity. Sarah confronted me first, her face a mask of horror and disbelief as she realized the magnitude of what we had done. She felt used and manipulated, which was exactly how I had intended her to feel. The pain in her eyes was a reflection of the pain I had carried for years, the hurt of abandonment and rejection finally finding its target. My father's reaction was even more satisfying. He flew into a rage when Sarah told him about the affair, his face turning red with fury as he realized that his own son had orchestrated his downfall. He threatened to call the police to sue me for fraud to destroy my career and reputation. But we both knew that any legal action would only bring more attention to his failures as a father and husband. The divorce proceedings were messy and public, with details of the affair splashed across local newspapers and social media. My father's business suffered as clients distanced themselves from the scandal, and he was forced to sell the company at a fraction of its value. Sarah moved back to her home state with her daughter, broken and bitter about the way she had been used as a pawn in someone else's game of revenge. I expected to feel triumphant when it was all over, to finally have the satisfaction of seeing my father's life crumble the way mine had when he left. Instead, I felt empty and hollow, realizing that my revenge had come at the cost of becoming the same kind of person he was. I had manipulated and hurt an innocent woman, destroyed a family, and lost any claim to moral high ground I might have had. The aftermath was lonelier than I had anticipated. Sarah would never forgive me for the deception, and rightfully so. My father cut all contact, moving to another state to start over once again. My mother was disappointed when she learned about what I had done, her gentle reproach cutting deeper than any anger could have. I had achieved my goal of destroying his second chance at happiness, but I had destroyed my own chances at redemption in the process. Years have passed since then, and I have tried to rebuild my life on more solid ground. I left the marketing firm and started my own business, focusing on helping small companies grow rather than playing corporate games. I have been in a few relationships, but none have lasted, sabotaged by my own inability to trust or be trusted completely. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had chosen forgiveness over revenge, if I had tried to build a relationship with my father instead of destroying the one he had with Sarah. But those are questions that have no answers, roads not taken that exist only in the realm of possibility. I made my choice and I have to live with the consequences, just as he had to live with his. The irony is not lost on me that I became exactly what I hated most about him, someone who was willing to destroy a family for his own selfish purposes. The difference is that I know what I did was wrong, while he still maintains that he was just following his heart. Perhaps that makes me slightly better than him, or perhaps it just makes me a more self-aware version of the same fundamentally flawed person. In the end, revenge is a dish best served cold, but it leaves the one who serves it just as frozen as the one who receives it. I got what I wanted, but I lost who I was in the process. My father abandoned me for his new family, and I destroyed that family out of spite. Neither of us emerged from the situation as better people, and the cycle of pain and abandonment continues, waiting for the next generation to either break it or perpetuate it. The saddest part is that Sarah was the real victim in all of this, an innocent woman who got caught in the crossfire of a war between father and son. She loved genuinely and was betrayed by both of us in different ways. If there is any justice in the world, she has found happiness elsewhere, far away from the toxic legacy of our family dysfunction. I still think about her sometimes, wondering if she ever truly understood why I did what I did, or if she simply sees me as another selfish man who used her for his own purposes. Both interpretations are probably true, and both fill me with a shame that no amount of success or time can fully erase. The boy who was abandoned grew into a man who abandoned his own moral compass, and the cycle continues in ways both subtle and profound.